Hello everyone, my name is No Have Name I Want, otherwise known as Patrick, and today I'm going to try a new series called An Introduction To, where essentially I just give an introduction to something in the game. I'm going to start off with three factions, and today I'm going to be going over Arengard, just because it's first in alphabetical order. So, quick disclaimer, this is for newer players. So if you're a big expert in the game, I'm not expecting you to get a whole lot out of this. And I'm not telling you how to play each of the factions. I'm just telling you how, like, their identity, their game design, what they're kind of designed around to do. But that doesn't mean that you can't play them however you want. You can very easily play each of the factions in any way you want. I've I've seen all the factions play in so many different ways. There's still new strategies coming out. If you want to play a faction a certain way, you absolutely can. I'm just telling you how, like I said, their identity, their game design is. So, Arengard, the human faction, knights, angels, honor, all that kind of stuff kind of describes Arengard quite well. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What are their units? I'll be explaining all this stuff. First, let's go over what I think their biggest strength is. I believe their biggest strength is consistency. Now, what does that mean? I believe it's very hard for Arengard not to get the value out of their units. I believe it's very easy for you to use the units and for you to get their values worth quite easily compared to the other factions. It does not take a lot to know how a unit works, how to best use it, and how to get its costs effectively. Um, Usually, you take a unit, it does 1 to 2 turns, and boom, you already got its values worth. From there on out, it's smooth sailing. Um, Another upside I think they have is their flexibility. Uh, what I mean by this is that a lot of their cards can be used in a lot of different strategies. In some of the other factions, there might be one card that's kind of very niche and used in one specific strategy. I think all the cards in Arengard can go well into any strategy. If you're super defensive, you want to shoot the opponent, let them come to you, and then go from there. I still think a lot of their high movement charging units, like the Pegasus, for movement, flying, and charging, kind of pretty aggressive. It's still pretty good as a defensive card because maybe you want to wait for a key unit to move in and then you take it out. So it's either good offensive or defensive. And then same goes for like the Longbow Archer. The Longbow Archer has 3 range, usually wants units to come to it, but it's still pretty good in offensive strategies because you can easily move the Longbow Archer up and then just start shooting weak units, maybe set up kills later on. I just think all the cards in Arengard are good in pretty much any strategy you choose. You just want to pick the cards you like the most, cards you find the most fun to use, and then just have fun. And another thing I think they're very good at is their enablers and disablers. Arengard is very well known for having incredible buffs and incredible debuffs. A good example is the Tactician. Tactician is probably the best buffer in the game for a couple reasons. 4 gold, not very expensive, not going to be a huge dent in your army cost, very cheap. The buffs it has a wide range of buffs, and they're quite powerful buffs. Pathing, which means you can move through units +1 power, which means it gets an extra attack. +1 range, which means ranged units can shoot one range further. +1 movement, which means it just moves faster. Sadly, you can't stack Tactician buffs. You can't give one unit +2 power, +2 range, +2 movement, or whatever. But it's very cheap to use, and something I think is a little broken, to be honest, is the fact that it doesn't cost any resources. So from round 1 to round 7, this unit is continuously buffing. It's continuously getting its values worth throughout the whole entire game. Spellcradle Seraph is another great buffer. It's essentially a Tactician, but for the magic side, very easy to increase the strength of your abilities and spells and whatnot. Incredible debuffers are, let's say, the Enforcer. Enforcer's got great stats, it's got armor, hard to kill, and it has Arrest, which means it pretty much, it disarms enemy, and disarming means it essentially sets a unit's attack to 0. It can't attack, can't retaliate, it's pretty much just worthless in a way. So, you have a big scary unit with a bunch of attack. Enforcer walks up, arrests it, boom, it's disabled, can't attack, can't retaliate, meaning you're free to wail on it with your melee units. Another great disabling units are the Tempest Mages. There's an elite Tempest Mage and a regular Tempest Mage. Their disable comes in Thunderclap, and what Thunderclap does is that it exhausts an enemy unit. Exhausting is the best debuff in the game, simply because it just says your unit's done. You can't move, you can't attack, you can't use abilities. It's just done. It's done for the turn, for the round. There's no really counterplay to it. When something's exhausted, it's just exhausted. You gotta deal with it. So exhaust being the best debuff in the game is incredibly powerful. So I got really powerful debuffs. A couple downsides is that a lot of their key units aren't very mobile. What I mean by that is, let's take the priest, their healer. Healing is very powerful in the game. Keeping units alive is very good. The downside the priest has is that 2 movement isn't the greatest. It's not terrible, but 2 movement isn't quite a lot. A lot of times you wanted to move further to be safe. And it doesn't have allied pathing. Now what does allied pathing mean? I'd say your priest is here. Pretty common priest spot. Right here, most likely. Priest is right there. You got like a Longbow Archer here, shooting things. Maybe you got a Swordsman here. And the enemy has a Knight right here, ready to kill the priest. It's in range. Your Knight can move up and charge it. And the priest here can't really do anything. The priest can't really move out of range of the Knight. The Knight's gonna kill it no matter what. Unlike some other support units and the other factions, you can't just move here behind his allies to be safe. He can't, just take the hit. He's kind of just stuck here. So this might happen a lot of times when you play Arengard, is that you're just in this scenario where a lot of units you want to keep alive are just trapped due to their lack of mobility. And another thing that they kind of suffer with is that a lot of their good supporting units have very low health, usually 1. The Tactician that we talked about before has 1 health. Spellcradle Seraph, as we talked before, have 1 health. These are like their 3 best support units, and they all have 1 health, meaning it's very easy for them to easily get sniped and flanked and killed. There are some ways around it, mainly Shieldbearer. Shieldbearer begins the battle with Shield 1, which essentially is 1 temporary health. And its ability allows it to give it to another unit. So all these units have 1 health. Instead, you can give its shield to another unit to essentially give it 1 extra health temporarily, which is really big because there's a lot of flanking units have 1 attack. A lot of really good flanking units have a lot of movement, but only 1 attack. So giving it 1 shield can be a big difference because that's essentially an extra round it's surviving. Maybe it gets an extra ability off, an extra buff, or what have you. I think that's about it. I'll get over. Let's talk about the units now. Now let's go over a couple of their units and their heroes. Let's go over the heroes first. First, let's go over Aurelia, just because she's first in alphabetical order. So Aurelia is one of the 2 heroes you can pick. Heroes are free units you essentially get in the game. They don't cost anything, but you can only have 1 hero. And they are identified by this full art, very great name, Aurelia of the Golden Dawn, and their ability to have items and abilities. So Aurelia has 5 mana, which is amazing. 5 mana is a very high amount in the game. 3 attack, very good. Everyone always likes 3 attack. 3 attack is a very good damage number to have. 3 movement, good movement, meaning she's able to quickly maneuver around the battlefield. She can start here, go from here, a lot of mobility she has there. And she has flying. Flying means she can fly over units. So, say for whatever reason, she's completely surrounded. She can just easily fly over them and do other things. So she's not surrounded. She's not constrained in any way. 5 health. 5 health is a great number to have. The most common damage type or damage numbers is 3 damage and 4 damage. So having 5 health means she can easily take at least 1 hit without fear of dying. So a great keyword in flying, great stats, great mana amount. And what are her abilities? First, is Sunstrike. There are 3 levels of Sunstrike, all do different things. But essentially, what they do is you spend a mana amount, 1, 2, or 3, and then you deal that much magic damage to an already damaged unit. So Sunstrike 1 is you spend 1 mana, deals 1 magic damage to a target unit that is already damaged. And it's global, so it has infinite range. You don't have to move closer. If something's damaged, you can easily just use it and damage it. It's very powerful just because it's global, meaning you can just have her in the back here, have your units slowly damage them, then you have this big threat of Sunstrike where you can easily finish it off, set its health extremely low. So Sunstrike is a very good ability. Another ability is Solar Aegis. Solar Aegis is another incredibly powerful ability. All the abilities on all the heroes are strong. But Solar Aegis is 2. Oh, I should probably mention, all the abilities cost money or gold. All the Sunstrikes cost 1 gold, so it's very flexible for which Sunstrike you want. All of them cost 1 gold, so you can have all 3 of them in your army if you want. You can have them all on the battlefield and have them be very, very cheap to wield. Solar Aegis is another incredibly powerful ability. It costs 2 gold, and it costs 1 mana. It has a range of 3, and it's combinable, meaning you can move and cast the ability, or cast the ability and then move. What it does is target allied cannot be attacked this round. This unit cannot charge this round, and you gain extra action if not combined. What does this mean? So let's take this knight here. Let's say it's in danger from being hit by, let's say, this paladin. Now, paladin has a great damage type, magic, which ignores armor. 4 damage. It's going to do a lot of damage to the knight. And you don't want the knight to take 4 damage, so what can you do? You can use Solar Aegis to prevent it from being damaged. So the knight cannot be attacked. It can still be damaged, but it can't be attacked, so the paladin can't just walk up and attack it in melee. Simply unable to do that. The downside is that now this knight cannot charge. Usually this isn't a big problem, because usually you charge with the knight first and then you give it Solar Aegis, but it is something you have to worry about. And if Aurelia doesn't move once she uses the ability, she doesn't exhaust, essentially. So use the ability, and then next turn you can use her again. Sadly, you cannot use Solar Aegis multiple times a turn, or multiple times a round. Well, that's for balancing reasons. Very strong ability. Next up is Sun's Fervor. Sun's Fervor is another great ability. You see this all the time on Aurelia. And essentially what it costs 3 gold. Essentially what it does is it gives her, you spend mana and you can give her charging and or imbued this round. Charging, like I said, probably the best keyword in the game, so allowing her to having a essentially a flying knight is incredibly powerful. Magic damage is great. You might not use it all the time, but having the option is always great. Maybe against certain keywords that like to be hit with physical damage, and this essentially shuts it off for 1 attack. Incredibly powerful. And her last ability is Glory. 2 gold, costs 2 mana, and it exhausts all adjacent enemy units, and you get an extra action. Like I said, exhaust is the best kind of debuff. So let's say Aurelia is again surrounded by a bunch of units. It's your turn, and she's in quite a pickle. All these units are about to hit her. It's very dangerous. If you use Glory, boom, all these units are now exhausted. They just lost a ton of tempo, and you can still use Aurelia. Maybe you attack her, maybe you get out of here, maybe you decide, I'm just going to sit here so I can do it again next round. Glory is incredibly powerful, very game winning if you get a good one off. There are some items in the game that you can equip them with. I won't go over the items just yet, but Aurelia is a very flexible hero, like the other Arengard's hero, but very flexible, very easy to get value out of, very strong abilities. And what's the other hero? The other hero is Tristan. Tristan is much more of a frontliney kind of hero, much more of a tank-like hero. Unlike Aurelia, who has a lot of builds for everything, Tristan does like being more of a duelist or a frontliney tank more than anything. You can still have him be, like a charging damage dealer or as just a support hero, but Tristan very much likes to be on the front line, taking hits, and being a medium threat to the enemy. His abilities are Divine Favor. There are 3 levels to this, just like Solar Aegis. And what they do is that they essentially give him temporary health. Shield 1, Shield 2, and Shield 3. So when you equip it, at the start of the battle, he either gains 1 shield, 2 shield, or 3 shield. Essentially, you can have him start the game with either 7 health, 8 health, or 9 health, in a way. Of course, you can't heal the shield, but if you want him to really be able to take hits, Divine Favor is great. Braveheart is a passive ability, meaning you don't have to activate it, it's just always going on. And he gets 1 power against enemies with a max health of 6 or more. So this is a great tool because usually the biggest threats the enemy have are units with large health pools, usually 6 or more. So let's take this Swordsman, for example. If he's fighting the Swordsman, he's still only going to deal 3 damage to it. He doesn't get that extra power against the Swordsman because the Swordsman doesn't have 6 or more health. Sadly, he can't kill the Swordsman. But let's say he's fighting the Dawnbringer Paladin. If he's fighting the Dawnbringer Paladin, he gets that 1 extra damage. So maybe the Paladin has 2 damage on him already. Maybe he gets healed up when you attack him the first time. That just makes it so that Tristan is able to... It's easier for him to kill these really high health and tanky units. Because 1 damage does a lot. You might look at this and say, oh, Braveheart doesn't do anything. Because you might say, Braveheart doesn't do anything against Paladin because it's still 2 hits. But let's say you deal 2 damage to the Paladin, or 3 damage to the Paladin, and then they have like a priest and heals it up. Now you can't kill it. Paladin's out of range. But if you deal 4 damage to it, and the enemy heals it up, well, Tristan can still kill it, because 4 damage still kills the Paladin. So Braveheart is incredibly powerful in that he is essentially always going to threaten to kill units in 2 hits. Instead of, maybe he takes 3 hits to kill him, like the example I showed where the Paladin gets healed. Now it's always pretty much going to be 2 hits to kill these kind of units. The next ability is Rest, another great ability. It's combinable. Target adjacent enemy unit is another great ability. As it says, target adjacent enemy unit is disarmed. It's combinable. And like Solarigus, you get an extra action if not combined. So, just like the Enforcer, you can prevent an enemy from attacking. Essentially it sets its power to 0. But something that the Enforcer doesn't do is that it's not its whole round. So it's like the Paladin. I disarm the Paladin. Paladin's attack is now 0. In my next turn, I can freely attack the Paladin, not take any retaliation, and he still takes the damage. So Arrest is a very great tool when it comes to dueling because you prevent the enemy from attacking you and allows you to get an extra free attack in. His last ability is Shield Bash. Shield Bash is, again, very great. Costs 1 mana. It's combinable. Oh, I forgot to talk about Tristan's stats. Tristan's stats, you can see it's 3 attack, great. 2 movement, not the greatest. Does take a while to, he's not quite as maneuverable as some heroes, but still not a terrible amount. He's not like super duper slow, but it's not the greatest. No keywords, unfortunately, but he does have 6 health, which is the highest in the game. So 6 health makes him really, really hard to kill just baseline. And he only has 3 mana. It's not a big deal because this is like the only time you're ever going to use mana on Tristan is with Shield Bash. So 3 mana honestly isn't very bad on him. Shield Bash is 1 mana. It's combinable, meaning you can move and use at the same time. and exhausts target adjacent enemy unit and deals 1 physical damage to it. Exhausting units, again, best debuff. Just walk up to it, exhaust the paladin, boom, now it can't do anything. Great tool, as you can see. Arengard really likes exhausting stuff. Very powerful tool. Now let's go over all of their regular old units. We're going to go from cheapest to most expensive, just to explain them better. First off is the Squire. Squire is a pretty good unit for its 2 gold cost. 2 gold, 2 attack, 2 health, 3 movement, allied pathing. I would say Squire is much more of a bodyguard type unit. You know, he wants to move in spots the enemy wants to move in. 2 gold isn't really, you're not expecting a whole lot from 2 gold. Essentially, if anything happens to the Squire, you've essentially already got its gold worth. You know, if he blocks an enemy unit, you got his gold worth. If he does 2 damage, you got his gold worth. You know, it's pretty much impossible to not get value out of the Squire. You know, what I mean by him being a great bodyguard is, let's say, the priest is here, and the enemy has a knight here. Oh, you're gonna charge in to the priest and kill him, you know? That's not good. Squire can very easily move in place and body block it. Now, if the knight wants to kill the priest, he has to get through the Squire first. And, you know, maybe have other units around, and he's just looking at it, he's like, it's not a great trade for me if I take the Squire. And with allied pathing, meaning he can very easily move through units, you know, units aren't blocking him. So even if he's like back here, and you know he's blocked by, maybe if he's like over here actually, and you know, it's like this stuff's in his way, he can still easily move through them and still block that knight from just killing the priest. Squire is very good. I look at him more as a bodyguard unit. Just because he doesn't have charging, you know, 2 health isn't the greatest. Best health for 2 cost though, so I think it's the only 2 cost that doesn't have 1 health, so he can actually survive a hit sometimes, which is strong. But I see him much more as just like a action or as a bodyguard unit. The next unit is the Apprentice Wizard. Apprentice Wizard is again incredibly powerful. Allied Pathing, very strong. Imbued, which means he does magic damage. And his ability is incredibly strong. Sadly, his stats aren't very great. 1 damage, 1 range, 2 movement, 1 health. Not very good, but for a 2 cost unit, you're not expecting great stats. But what his power really comes in is his ability, which is Diminish. Starts with 3 mana, and it costs 1 mana, so you can do this a total of 3 times throughout the game. It's combinable, and it makes it so that target unit has 1 less power this round, which is incredibly powerful. So, it's a good example here. So, you have the Pegasus here, and, you know, the knight's threatening to take the Pegasus. You know, it's not very good for you, you know. You can lose this unit for free. If you have an Apprentice Wizard, he can very easily debuff the knight, set its power to 2, and now the knight can't take the Pegasus anymore. So for 2 gold, essentially, you've saved this devastating trade the enemy was about to get. So, very, very powerful. You can kind of use him as like a bodyguard unit as well, but Squire is just better because that 1 movement is incredibly powerful. And, you know, if the enemy does move next to the Squire and the Squire gets a hit off, it's always better than that 1 damage the Wizard gets. You pretty much mainly want to use the Apprentice Wizard for the Diminish. It's very cheap debuff, and it's pretty strong, but don't expect to get 3 uses out of it. 1 health is very low. Probably gonna die once he moves up too far. Now we're on to 3 gold units. Longbow Archer. Very, very strong. Very good unit to have in any army. So for 3 gold, you're getting 1 power, which isn't a whole lot. 3 range, which is very good. 2 movement, and 2 health. These are pretty great stats for a ranged unit for 3 cost. 2 health means he's not sniped by a lot of flanking units that you'll see throughout the game. 2 movement for ranged units actually pretty good, just because ranged units don't really need to move very far. You mainly just want them to reposition, and 2 movement usually does it. You rarely want to move a ranged unit 3 distance away. 3 range is incredibly powerful, just because the threat range he has is incredibly powerful. Like, this is his threat range is right here. Very, very long range. So in this whole area, you're threatening to deal 1 damage for free. And why this is strong? So let's take this knight, for instance, and let's say they're fighting this swordsman. As you can see, the knight can't kill the swordsman when he charges in. The swordsman would live with 1 health. This is where the power of the longbowman comes in. Longbowman shoots it for 1, sets its health to 3, and now the knight can very easily come in and take him out. And 1 damage is also very annoying for your opponent, because most healing in the game is 2 health. So if you damage something by 1 and you threaten to kill it, if they want to heal it, they're not getting the full value out of that heal. They're wasting 1 HP heal, essentially. They might have saved the swordsman, but it's not the greatest value out of their healer. So Longbowman is very strong for a 3 cost unit. Very, very good. Spellcradle Seraph is one of their buffers, one of their enablers. For 3 cost, you get 3 mana. Very strong. 1 damage, not very relevant. You're rarely ever going to attack with this unit, but it does come up sometimes. I've seen this come up sometimes where it's relevant. So not terrible. 3 movement, which is very good for a support unit. Flying, which is also very good for a support unit. 1 health, which is terrible. Dies anything, but with the 3 movement and flying, the survivability of this unit isn't terrible, simply because it can move and fly away. And their ability is combinable, which means it can move to save itself and still get the value out of the buff. What does the buff do? It costs 1 mana, it has 3 range. 3 range is really good. Combinable, which is amazing. And target allied unit gains +1 cast range, +1 power, or it ignores spellproof. All those are incredibly good. So let's take the Tempest Mage. So +1 cast range. So instead of 2 range on Lightning Strike and Thunderclap, it's 3 range. So where normally this swordsman would be out of range, you can now reach it if you give it a buff. So maybe you want to Thunderclap it to exhaust it, or maybe you want to do 2 damage to it, get it to half health. You don't threaten to kill it. +1 spell power. So take this knight. So instead of dealing 2 magic damage, instead does 3 magic damage. Set the knight's health down to 2, and Tempest Mage can then kill it next round. With another lightning strike. And then ignores spellproof. I don't think Arengard has any spellproof. I don't think they do. Well, spellproof is an incredibly good defensive keyword, because spellproof means they're immune to spells. Their abilities don't work these mana abilities don't work. Essentially, they're immune to your effects, and that's not very good because if your army is very ability based, it's not very good because that unit's essentially immune to all of your abilities. Spellcradle Seraph is very good because just knowing spell poof for a round is incredibly powerful. You can just say, no, this ability is going to affect you, and it's essentially just removing a very strong keyword from an opponent, which is very, very strong. Very good unit if you want more ability based, ability based army. Very mobile, so it's not terrible in terms of defense, but it still has 1 health, so it's still very, very fragile. Shieldbearer, I've already explained Shieldbearer a little bit, but Shieldbearer is mainly just kind of another enabler, another support unit, in that you just want to give your very squishy, low health units just 1 extra health just to hope that they survive an extra attack. If they have a lot of 1 damage units, giving a 1 health unit 2 health is incredibly powerful. If they have a lot of 2 damage units, giving a 2 health unit 3 health is incredibly powerful. Shieldbearer is incredibly strong in terms of keeping your army alive. Sadly for the stats, 1 attack, 2 movement, 2 health, not the best, but giving another unit shield 1 is well worth the price. Crossbowman, which is a very, very powerful unit, so for 3 cost, you're getting a charging unit with 1 attack, 1 range, 2 movement, and 2 health. Now, if you compare this to the Longbow Archer, you might think, Longbow Archer seems way better because you get way more range and essentially the same stats. Well, the crossbow strength comes in its ability, which is if it attacks an exhausted unit, it gets 1 more power. So essentially, you're getting a Longbow Archer that gets 1 more damage in exchange of putting it more at risk. So, let's say this Swordsman here, he got done. He moved up in this turn, and now he's just exhausted. He's gonna sit here and be vulnerable. Where the Longbow Archer can sit nicely back and shoot it, only dealing 1 damage. The Crossbowman can move up and shoot it for 2. And 2 damage might be useful because, maybe you have another 2 damage unit ready to kill it. Maybe they have something that can heal it, and you want to really waste it. The strength of the Crossbowman comes in that it's very cheap damage. Out of all the other units we've seen so far, they've only deal 1 damage. Squire does deal 2 damage, but it doesn't have charging and it's not ranged. But the Crossbowman's strength is that it's ranged damage and it's 2 power for 3 cost, which is incredibly powerful. I kind of want to use this as how you'd use a longbow, that you want to weaken them first and then finish them off with another unit. You can also use this as a defensive unit in that you're using it to defend your flanks. A lot of the flanking units don't have a lot of health. Usually they have less than 2 health, 2 or less health. So the crossman can just sit over here, and defend the flanks quite well. It's also a pretty decently good buff target, but a lot of units in Arengard are good buff targets. So I can either use this as a very cheap 2 damage chip damage unit, or as a defensive protect my flank kind of unit. Very, very strong unit. Next is the Tempest Mage. We've already looked at the Tempest Mage a little bit. So 4 gold, you're getting 4 mana, which is amazing. You get allied pathing and imbued, so you can move through units and does magic damage with its regular attacks. And it has 2 very strong abilities. Lightning Strike does 2 magic damage to target units, so very, very strong damage output for its cost. It's kind of like a crossbow, as you can see, but it's safer, and it does magic damage. So maybe they have keywords that want to take physical damage. Tempest Mage instead does magic damage. And of course, the best ability it has, in my opinion, is Thunderclap, which just exhausts the unit. Best debuff in the game. Just makes it so they can't do anything. So, sadly, the one weakness the Tempest Mage does have is that none of its abilities are combinable, meaning you have to stand still if you want to use the ability. So, if the Swordsman is, this far away, I sadly can't use the ability to deal 2 damage to it because it's just too far away, and I can't move up and then use it just because it's not combinable. So if I want to damage the Swordsman, I have to sadly waste this unit's turn just to move closer, just so I can threaten to do it next round. It's still incredibly powerful. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's kind of a balancing reason because the 2 abilities it has are incredibly strong. They're incredibly strong. But sadly, just no combinable really makes it kind of slow. Next is the Pikeman. Pikeman is very good defensive unit, kind of like a very cheap tank in a way, because for 4 costs you get Steadfast. Now what does Steadfast do? Essentially it negates charging. I've said this before, charging is probably the best keyword in the game. Instead of having a unit that just ignores that keyword is strong. So, for example, let's say you have a priest here, and they have a knight. And the knight wants to kill the priest. It desperately wants to kill the priest. That's the enemy's goal. If it wants to kill the priest... what's going on? No. Wrong thing. Okay. So, if the knight wants to kill the priest, let's say there's other things in the way, the stuff that it doesn't want to attack. If the knight wants to kill the priest without risking taking damage from the 2 swordsmen, has to first move up to the pikeman, pass the turn, then has to then kill the pikeman, that's its turn, and then it has to kill the priest. So essentially, pikeman buys you 2 turns for as opposed to most units only buying you 1 turn. Like the Squire buys you technically 1 turn because the Squire is going to die and the priest is going to die. But for the pikeman, they have to first walk up to it and then attack it and then kill whoever it is protecting it. So very, very strong defensive units. And also it has another ability where this unit may move to its starting hex after combat. Most of the time for melee units, if like this knight, if this knight kills the pikeman, it can't then just say, I don't want to take its space. It has to take the space. And that might be bad because there might be, units here wanting to kill it. That might be able to kill it, so it might not want to take the pikeman. The pikeman doesn't have that issue because, say it's able to kill this knight, it can kill the knight, and then say, you know what, I really like this spot, there's probably stuff over here that's threatening to kill me, maybe they have range units, maybe I'm leaving a gap open, so after I kill the knight, I'm just going to move back to my spot and still defend my priest. So, very strong defensive unit. And also just being able to ignore charging also can make it a pretty good forward unit, just because a lot of the good damage dealers are charging units. So just being able to ignore charging is incredibly, incredibly useful. Next we'll talk about the Tactician, because it's on 4 constant units. Tactician, I've talked about this before, and all of its buffs are incredibly strong. So take the Knight and Swordsman again. Knight trying to charge a Swordsman isn't great because it doesn't kill the Swordsman. He's going to attack it, take damage. Swordsman probably does damage back. It's not very good. But the Tactician can, let's say, first turn. Alright, I want to give it my Knight +1 power. And then, now the Knight has 4 attack, meaning it can one-shot the Swordsman. Meaning it can then safely take the Swordsman and not take any damage in return. +1 range, so take the. So say the Swordsman's right over here. The game just started. You can give the Longbow Archer +1 range, and now instead of its threat range being 3, which is good, now it's 4, which is absolutely insane. Look how much range you have. Like all this stuff is now able to be hit. Even the Swordsman, the game just started, boom. Now you're threatening to damage the Swordsman. The game just started. The opponent didn't even get a chance to do anything, and now you're threatening to damage his units. Just the threat range of 4 is insane. 3 constant unit, 4 range is amazing. And I'm going to show a little unit up ahead, but the Elite Longbow Archer is essentially just the Longbow Archer, but with 1 more power. You can get that for a Tactician. Sure, it is slightly more expensive with 1 gold, as the Elite Longbow Archer is 3 more gold than the Longbow Archer. The Tactician's 4 more gold. But the power of the Tactician is that it can buff multiple units. You have multiple options. Imagine having all these units that you can buff, and your opponent has to play around all of them. That is the power the Tactician has, is that you simply just have... Power of the Tactician is that not only is it making your units incredibly strong, but you have so many options too. So it's just incredibly hard for your opponent to play around if you're using Tactician properly. I don't know where he went. There we go. So the power of the Tactician is incredibly strong. And it's combinable, and all of its buffs are incredibly powerful. Even pathing and +1 movement is incredibly strong. +1 movement makes the Knight able to charge these 3 hexes if placed here. Instead of not being able to threaten anything, it's threatening 3 of their units. So Tactician is an incredibly powerful buff unit. Here it was. Find it. The Priest, as we've explained before, as I showed you before, incredibly good unit. For 5 gold, you're getting 4 mana. 4 mana is always nice. And it has 2 abilities. Bless, which essentially just heals target unit for 4. Costs 1 mana, has 4 range, which is absurd. 4 range healing is absurd. And combinable, which means you can move. So effectively, you have 6 range of healing. If this Knight's way over here, you can move here and boom, heal it. Look at this range that you have that the Priest can heal. Just boom, heal, boom. Look at that. Such huge range that Priest has for healing. And then the other one is Dispel, which is the same thing, 1 mana, 4 range combinable, and it removes a debuff from target allied unit. Now what makes the Priest different from other healers is that when it uses its debuff removal, it also heals. All the other healers in the game don't have this luxury. Usually stuck between, do I remove a debuff or do I heal him? Priest is, I can remove the debuff and heal it. Sure, it might not be as good as a regular healing, but you're still healing them, and so maybe that 1 health prevents it from dying, which is all you want. Move the debuff, able to do stuff, heal it for 1, boom, now it's not dying. So the strength of the priest is that it has absurd range, 4 mana, which is really good, and its debuff removal also heals. You'll see pretty much you pretty much want one healer at least in every army, just because debuff removal is incredibly strong, and I would say Arengard has probably the best healer in the game, just because of that debuff removal also healing. It's insane how often that comes up and becomes useful. Next is the Swordsman, if I can find him. There it is. Our little target demo we've been using the whole game. Swordsman is 5 costs, and you get 3 power, 3 movement, 4 health. For 5 cost unit, it's pretty strong. 3 damage is incredibly common damage number. Threatens a lot of stuff with little support. With little support, like in a Longbow Archer, threaten even more stuff. 3 movement, good movement, and 4 health. As you can see, is a very, very good health to be at. A lot of things deal 3 damage. Having 4 health means they need an extra hit just to kill the thing. Pretty good frontlining unit. It's pretty average in terms of like what it can do. You know, if you want it to be a damage dealer, easily can. You want it to be a frontline unit, easily can. Not really much else to say. It's pretty solid unit right there. Enforcer. For 5 gold, you're getting 2 damage, 2 movement, 4 health. So already not looking too good compared to the Swordsman, but you get 2 very big upsides compared to the Swordsman. You're getting Armor 1, meaning whenever it takes physical damage, it takes 1 less damage. And it has Arrest, which is essentially Tristan's ability, but it's worse in a few ways. First off, you don't get an extra action if you don't use the combinable. You're pretty much using this ability to debuff an enemy, and you can't then attack it for free. You have to use another unit. Also, it has 1 less movement if you want to combine it. Meaning instead of having this 2 movement range, essentially 3 threat range of disarming, you can only move 1 space. So this range is pretty low compared to the 2 range you normally have. Don't get me wrong, it's still a very good frontlining disabling unit. Armor 1 makes it so that it's pretty hard to kill just because Armor 1's a great keyword. 4 health means it's got a lot of health to use the armor with. Usually takes 3 hits, sometimes at the very least it's 2 hits, sometimes it even takes 3. Sometimes this thing's unkillable just because they don't have the damage output to get through the armor. And of course, Arrest is very good, very able to go toe to toe with other scary units just because of the Arrest. Very, very strong unit. For 6 costs, now we're getting to 6 costs, is Skyreign Pegasus. Every faction has 1 flying charger with 4 movement, and Arengard has the Pegasus. So flying, charging, like I said, 6 cost. And this unit cannot be debuffed or exhausted by enemy units, which is very strong. So the enemy can't, the enemy can't exhaust it. So if they're able to, they simply can't. And maybe they want to arrest it, they want to disarm it. Well, they can't do that either because it's just immune. Pegasus is a very good unit when you just want to kill one very specific unit. I like to think of the flying chargers, the flying 4-range chargers, as like assassin units. You want them specifically because they have an enemy unit that you want to kill. This is the best option for that. And it not being able to be debuffed or exhausted is absurdly strong just because if you're threatening to kill something, the only way they can stop you is by debuffing your guy. Maybe they root it, so they have to root it. Maybe they have to disarm it. But if that's the only way they can stop it, Pegasus is going to be able to get its target. And of course, 4 range is ridiculous. Look at 4 range. Like I said with the Archer, 4 range is absurd. It's incredibly strong. There's a big reason why there's not very many 4 range units, just because it's absurd how big 4 range is. Halberdier, which is essentially just... Halberdier is just the Pikeman, but with 1 more attack and health. Everything I said about the Pikeman applies to the Halberdier, except now we can actually deal a bit more damage and it can take an extra hit. Same reason you want to use the Pikeman, but maybe you just want a bit more. You want to invest a bit more in your protection. Next is the Elite Longbow Archer. I've already showed this off. It's essentially just the Longbow Archer, but with 1 more attack. Same reason you want to use the Longbow Archer, but maybe you just want to invest a bit more in the damage output it can do. That's why you'd want to use the Elite Longbow Archer. Excuse me. Next is the Spellbreaker. Spellbreaker, I think, is pretty ridiculous. For a 7 cost tech unit, Spellbreaker is incredibly powerful. So for 7 cost, you're getting 3 mana, which is alright. Magic resist 3, which is amazing. So whenever it takes magic damage, it takes 3 less magic damage. So essentially it's armor but for magic damage, but it's 3. And then it has 2 incredibly powerful abilities. One being Magic Shield 1. Magic Shield costs 1 mana, has 4 range. As we know, 4 range is really good. It's combinable, and it gives another unit Magic Resist 3. So not only does it have Magic Resist 3, it's giving another unit Magic Resist 3. So if they are very heavily into magic damage, Spellbreaker is amazing. You're essentially having 2 units be immune to magic damage for a round. And the other ability is Quiet. 1 mana, 4 range, combinable. Target unit is silenced this round. Silence just means they can't use any abilities. Any abilities they have on their unit, they can no longer use. And what do you get for this 7 cost tech unit? You're getting 3 damage, or 3 power, which is great. 1 range, which is great. This is like a frontlining. As you can see, 2 movement, which is but with 4 range abilities, 2 range isn't really prohibiting it very much. And it has 4 health. So this is essentially a swordsman with 2 extremely powerful abilities with magic resist 3, and it has 1 range, which means it can attack a unit and not take any retaliation. That's absurd. This is supposed to be a very niche tech unit, and yet I can see this just being in any army and having it be incredibly powerful. And this is what I mean by Arengard being super versatile and consistent. Like, this is a tech unit they have. This is a unit that you're not supposed to see very often, and it's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Next to the Elite Swordsman. Just like the Swordsman, it has Swordsman stats, but it has 2 pretty good abilities. So for 2 more gold, you're getting Swordsman stats, and you're getting Counter-Strike. What Counter-Strike does is, usually, a unit... So let's see the heavy... So, usually if this heavy Swordsman attacks a 4 health unit, it would kill the unit, and it wouldn't take any retaliation because, it's dead. You kill the unit, and so therefore it cannot retaliate. Counter-Strike means it will always retaliate if able to. So Heavy Knight charges into the Elite Swordsman. The Elite Swordsman will still be able to retaliate, so it will still get its damage off. So even if the Elite Swordsman dies, it's still doing damage. So even if it dies in one hit, you're still getting value out of it at the very least because it's damaging the unit that killed it. The other very strong ability is at the start of this unit's turn, you may give it +1 power this round or shield 1. So giving it +1 power essentially means for this round it has 4 power, which is good because maybe you're in this scenario where, it's 2 swordsmen threatening to damage the elite swordsman. If you give it +1 power, you can then kill this swordsman, and then if this swordsman tries to attack you, you then kill that swordsman. So being able to just get 1 power is very strong because the difference between 3 power and 4 power is pretty huge. As you can see, a lot of these units that have 4 power or 4 health, you just suddenly being able to kill it is huge. And its other ability is giving it shield 1. So instead of it having 4 health, it essentially has 5 health, just for, Yeah, so instead of being killed by a unit with 4 power, it instead live with 1 health, which is very strong. Something I have to emphasize with the Elite Swordsman is that it only gets shield 1. It does not gain +1 shield. This is a very common mistake people have. You can't just set this here and just keep giving it more and more shield. It can only gain shield 1, which means it's only going to be able to get this 1 shield. It cannot go up from there. You can, however, get shield 1, and then if it gets removed, you then can give it back to him. But you cannot go past shield 1. It only sets it up to shield 1. It's a very common mistake people have. But Elite Swordsman's a very good tanky damage dealer, It's got very good damage output and, can very easily take a hit. It's a very, very solid unit. Adept Tempest Mage is essentially the Tempest Mage, except it has 1 more base range in all of its abilities, and it has 1 more damage. Incredibly strong, as you can tell, Tempest Mage's abilities are very good. Just giving him +1 range is really great. You're essentially just giving it a permanent Spellcradle Seraph. So yeah, Tempest Mage, Adept Tempest Mage, very good. Knight, the creme de la creme of Arengard. When I think Arengard, I think Knights. Knights are incredibly strong. Knights can do everything. If you want them to be a charge and damage dealer, they can do that. If you want them to just be a frontlining tank, they can do that. If you want them to just sit over here and protect your flanks, they can do that too. They can do everything. They'll cook you dinner. They'll cook you dinner. They'll take you out to a movies. They'll treat you nice. Knights are just amazing. Now, why are knights so amazing? So like I said, just take a swordsman for example. For 3 more gold, you are getting +1 health. You're getting charging, which is amazing, and you're getting armor 1 for 3 more gold. That's a steal. That is a steal. Charging, like I said, probably the best keyword in the game, means you can. So instead of just having to waste your turn moving close to him and then attacking, you can charge him any direction. You have a lot of options here. Being able to move and attack is incredibly strong. And armor 1, most of the damage in this game is physical, meaning it's essentially got way more health than just 5. If it takes a physical damage, it takes 1 less. So, for example, if they have a Longbow Archer, Longbow Archer does 0 damage to a knight. Literally, it does 0. It does zip. The Longbow Archer is completely useless against a knight just because the armor 1 negates all the damage it does. And knights are incredible for Arengard. They're great buff targets. They're incredibly hard for the enemy to deal with just because they're just baseline hard to kill, and they are great damage dealers. Knights are amazing. And this is the worst knight there is. This is the cheapest knight. I shouldn't say worse. It's the cheapest knight. They only get better from here. Next is the High Priest. Oh my god, come on. Next is the High Priest. It's just a priest, but double. It has one more mana, and it heals for double. So instead of healing for 2, it heals for 4, and instead of healing for 1, when it removes a debuff, it can heal up to 2. It may seem really good for only 3 more gold, but priests are already a very high target for enemy, and so you have to make sure you get that value's worth. If you're only going to heal 2 health for the High Priest, then you're probably better off with just a regular priest. High Priest has a very big target on its back. And it's very vulnerable. It doesn't get any more protection than a regular priest. If you want to use a High Priest, you have to make sure you're going to get that full value heal off. There are some units later on that you're going to see that really like that for healing. But if you do want to, I would recommend mostly using just the regular priest. It's a lot safer and less greedy. Frost Maiden, a very, very strong debuffer. Like I said, Arengard's got great debuffs. I can already tell we've passed through a whole bunch. Now they got another strong one. For 8 gold, you have 5 mana. 5 mana is great. Allied Paladin, which is great. Imbued, which is great. 1 damage, it's not the greatest for 8 gold, but her abilities make it up. 2 range, which is pretty good for like a mage casting unit. 2 range is quite well. 3 movement, so she's very mobile for being a nice mage. But 1 health is very dangerous. For 8 gold and having 1 health, it's very dangerous. Now you have to really make sure you're protecting her, and you have to really make sure you get her values worth before she gets sniped. She's got a big target on her back, and she's very easy to be dealt with. But like other Arengard units, very easy for her to get her value. First she has Frostbite, 1 mana, 4 range, combinable. So with her 3 movements and Allied Paladin, and this being 4 range combinable, there's no safety there's no range you can be from where you're not within frostbite distance. So if she's in this far corner of the map, she can target 1, 2, 3, 4. She can target over here. If you have a knight here, this Frost Maiden can still reach it. That's absurd. Look at that range. There's nothing that the Frost Maiden can't frostbite. Okay. Now to balance this, I should explain what Frostbite does, but 7 range is pretty ridiculous. And what this does is that it roots the target unit, meaning it can't move, and it cannot be moved by moving effects. It's just stuck there. And it deals 1 non-lethal magic damage to it. The reason it deals non-lethal damage to it is because otherwise it'd be too strong. Dealing 1 regular magic damage to it would essentially make it the best sniper in the game. So it has to deal non-lethal damage for balance reasons. But 7 range threatening to root anything is insane. There's nothing that's not within range of Frostbite. And it costs 1 mana, so you can effectively get this off 5 times. And then the second ability is Frost Nova. For 2 mana, 3 range, slightly less. Not combinable, so it's a big downside, but it's still a strong ability. All enemy units in target tri-hex. So what that means is essentially this unit's here. Yeah, it's like So how this tri-hex works is that you target 3 hexes that are right next to each other like this. You can't. So essentially, you pick the hexes where this little, where all of them connect to the like one point like that, and then so all enemy units in that little targeting space take 2 magic damage, lethal magic damage, and they have -1 movement. So not only are you damaging up to 3 units, you're also slowing them by 1. Unfortunately, how range works in this game is that all 3 hexes have to be within 3 range. So you can't just pick this hex and then target these 2 hexes outside of its range. It's not allowed. All of the 3 hexes have to be within 3 range, just again for balance reasons. Otherwise, it'd be too strong. But for 8 gold, she is pretty vulnerable, but she does have great disabling potential and some pretty good AoE and damage potential. I think she's one of the few units that actually has AoE in the game. So high risk, high reward. If you can do it right, then you're good. Next is the Royal Griffon. So Royal Griffon is very unique in the game. So it has, for 9 gold, you're getting a flying, 3 attack, 3 movement, 5 health. So essentially knight stats. Well, instead of charging and armor 1, you're getting flying. Now, what makes the Royal Griffon so good? The Royal Griffon is good in that instead of the usual 1 action around, it gets 2 actions around. So, actions can be used in one of 3 different ways. You can either use an action to move. So if you move, that's 1 action. Attacking, so attacking another unit can also be used as an action. And also using abilities can be used for actions. Royal Griffon doesn't have abilities, but so essentially he can move twice, attack twice, or do 1 of each. So let's say Swordsman's over here. I can spend its first action to move next to it. Then I can use the second action to attack it. Or let's say the Swordsman's over here. I can spend the first action to move here, and the second action to move here. So pretty good mobility Royal Griffon has. Or if you really want to, let's say both of them took 1 damage somehow. Maybe your Longbowman weakened them up. You can spend 1 action to kill the Swordsman, and then use the second action to kill the second Swordsman. So the potential the Royal Griffon has is pretty big. Being able to threaten such a large variety, being able to do so much things, having so much movement and damage potential, makes it quite good. You mainly want to use him at the end of the round just because Royal Griffon does have a pretty big target just because of how much damage output he can deal. But still a really good unit. Dawnbringer Paladin, another great frontlining brawler unit. So for 9 gold, you're getting 2 mana, which isn't great, but usually you don't need to use his ability all that often, so it's pretty fine. He has imbued, which essentially means he does magic damage, and you're getting 4 power, which is amazing. Most common damage type is 3, and so a lot of units like having 4 health. 4 damage means you then kill those units in 1 hit. 4 damage is amazing. 2 movement, kind of slow. It's not the greatest, but he has one big upside I'll get to shortly. 6 health, great health pool, pretty much always guaranteed to survive an attack. And his ability is Sunburst. So for 1 mana, it's combinable, meaning you can move and use it, or use it and then move. This unit cannot be attacked this round and deals 1 magic damage to all adjacent enemy units. So essentially, he gets his own personal Solar Aegis. Solar Aegis prevents units from being attacked this round, and he essentially gets 2 of those. But another upside is that he deals 1 magic damage to all adjacent units. So not only can he not be attacked, he's also weakening all the units around him. So, for whatever reason, maybe they have, 3 knights here. I don't know why, but essentially, Paladin can move up here, deal 1 magic damage to all of them, ignoring their armor. In the next round, since they all have 4 health, Dawnbringer Paladin can kill essentially all of these. It's not a problem for him to just whack all of these very slowly. So Dawnbringer Paladin's a very good frontlining unit. Him dealing magic damage is great. And his ability makes him very hard for him to deal with just because not being able to attack him is pretty strong. Angel, one of the strongest, but another very strong unit Arengard has. For 10 gold, you're getting 3 mana, which is pretty alright. And then you're getting knight stats. And he also has flying. Like most angels, they can fly. The power the angel has are its abilities. Its abilities are incredibly strong. So, for the first ability is Divine Shield. For 1 mana, 3 range combinable, target allied unit gets Shield 2. So, similar to the Shieldbearer, which sacrifices its own shield to give another unit a shield. This gives another unit Shield 2 for 1 mana. Shield 2 is amazing because, giving a unit 1 temporary health is amazing. Giving a unit 2 temporary health is very good. Essentially, double the survivability of some units. Very, very strong. And the other very powerful ability he has is Resurrect. 2 mana, 2 range, which essentially means you revive a unit within 2 range, and you return the target dead allied unit with gold cost 5 or less to target hex. And he gains an extra action. So your swordsman ran in, did some damage, and died. And now he's dead. Angel can say, nope, you're not dead yet. I want you to come back and do more stuff. So within 2 range of the angel, he can revive him. Angel doesn't get exhausted from it. And now essentially you've just got an extra unit for free. Kinda. You still have to pay the mana cost and stuff, but you essentially just brought your unit back, meaning he can get more value out of it. Something you do be wary of is that heroes technically do not have a gold cost, so you cannot revive heroes. Heroes just flat out don't have a gold cost, meaning you cannot revive them. So if your plan is to have a hero and then revive it, you sadly cannot do that. It would be too powerful otherwise. But for 10 cost unit, it's very powerful. They are kind of hard to use just because angels tend to have a big target on their back. The enemy wants to kill them before they can get their resurrect off, which is most of the time people use them for. But just using it as just a shield engine is pretty good too. Battering ram. So for 11 gold, you're getting 1 movement and 8 health. That doesn't seem very good on paper, but its strength is armor 2. It is the only thing in the game that can get armor 2. Armor, so instead of taking 1 less damage from physical attacks, it's taking 2 less damage from physical attacks. Meaning its survivability is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. 8 health and armor 2, this thing is not dying, like, at all throughout the whole entire game. Unless the enemy specifically counters this unit. This thing isn't dying. And it also has 2 incredibly strong abilities. The first ability it has is this unit cannot be moved by enemy effects. Meaning, if it's somewhere, it cannot be moved. There are a lot of good forced movement effects in the game, and the Battering Ram ain't have none of it. If it's there, it's there. It's not moving. Unless you decide for it to move. The other strong ability is Ram. It deals 5 physical damage to target adjacent unit, and it pushes it and all chained units behind it 1 hex back. And then it may move into the hex. So what does this mean? So let's take the Swordsman again. Let's say enemies lined up kind of like this. The Battering Ram can use this ability, deal 5 damage to the Swordsman, killing it. Then it will push this Swordsman back 1. Then you may or may not decide to move into the hex, or you can decide to keep it here. So this unit's pushed back. This unit's not pushed back because it wasn't chained. Chain just means, kind of like a chain, like links. There's a break in the chain, therefore this isn't affected. So Battering Ram is very good at moving things out of the way. 5 damage is a lot. 2 armor makes it incredibly hard to deal with, and 8 health. It's very, very hard for the enemy to deal with Ram if they don't have the correct counters to it. Next up, the Heavy Knight. Just like the Knight, but has 1 more attack and health. That's about all there is to it. 4 more gold, you're getting 1 more attack and 1 more health. They may not sound worth it, but like I said, the difference between 3 attack and 4 attack is insane. And with armor, every health point counts. So damage that might kill a regular knight, the Heavy Knight could probably survive it, and then you can heal back up again. So Heavy Knight is incredibly strong, just like the regular knight. The 4 power comes in handy quite a bit, and every health point matters when it comes to armor. Next up, the Catapult. Catapult for 12 cost, you're getting 3 power, 3 range, 1 movement, and 4 health. So this is a very hard to deal with ranged unit that does quite a bit of damage. This pairs incredibly well with Tactician because its range and attack values are incredibly high. Sadly, 1 movement means it's pretty slow, but like I said, for ranged units, movement isn't very necessary on them. They're just there for repositioning, and just repositioning it 1 forward or 1 to the side is pretty much all you really need to do for Catapult. The downside of the Catapult is that it cannot retaliate or attack units within 1 range. So essentially anything that's adjacent to it, it can't damage back. So if an enemy puts enemies right next to it, the Catapult's very, very vulnerable. And with 1 range, it can't really run away. It's super slow in that regards. But if you want just 1 really strong range unit, Catapult your man. Very high damage output, great range, pairs well with Tactician, and with 4 health, it's very hard for them to kill it. It's usually going to take at least 2 to 3 rounds for them to kill the Catapult. Next up is the Ultraknight. It's like the Heavy Knight, but Ultra. So for 3 more gold, you're getting 1 more attack, 1 more health, very strong, and you're getting a new ability two great abilities, and that the Ultraknight can charge units with Steadfast. So the Pikeman, usually very good at holding the ground. Ultraknight doesn't care. He's going to charge through him anyway. He's a brave boy. He's not going to care about that spike at all. He's charging through him. He doesn't care. And he also cannot be disarmed or exhausted by enemy effects. So, usually two very strong disables used to stop very powerful units like the Ultraknight no longer work. So the Ultraknight just doesn't care. He's going to go where he pleases and there's nothing you can do to stop him. Very strong. For 15 gold though, it is expensive. 15 gold is a very big investment. The highest gold army you can field is 80, unless you're just wanting to just do whatever you want. But for competitive play, 80 gold is the highest. And so this is a big portion of your armor. This is about 20% of your army. Actually, I think it's exactly 20%. Hold on. Who cares about math? This is about 20% of your army right here. 25% of your army. It's a big, big investment. So if you do want to go Heavy Knight, it's a big investment. And it's, like I said, big target on its back. Even if it is hard to kill, even if it does do a lot of damage, it's still high target and the enemy will find ways to kill it. Grand Wizard. For 15 cost, you're getting 6 mana, which is great. It's amazing. 6 mana is a lot. And you get 3 incredibly powerful abilities. In fact, the Grand Wizard is supposed to have more stuff on it, but because of the text on it, it had to lose some stuff. So for 15 gold, you're getting 2 power, 2 range, 2 movement, 3 health. Not the greatest stats, but the strength of the Grand Wizard comes in its abilities and spells. Diminish. A while back, we talked about the Apprentice Wizard, where essentially it reduces the power of an enemy unit by 1. The Grand Wizard has that, except way better. So it has X mana, which means you can spend anywhere between 0 to 6. It has 4 range, so 1 more range than the Apprentice Wizard, combinable, and target unit gets minus X plus 1 power this round. Sadly, you can't spend negative 1 power. People thought about that, but fortunately the minimum is 0. So you can either give... So, essentially for free, you're giving an enemy unit minus 1 power. And if you want, you can spend more mana to make it better. So if you want to, you can spend 2 mana to give a knight minus 3 power. Essentially making that knight disarmed. Most of the time, people don't spend more than 1 mana on this just because the other abilities are much better. But it is an option for you. Next ability is Teleport. 1 mana, 3 range, combinable. Relocate target unit within 2 range of its starting hex. You cannot use this ability during the first round. The reason you can't use it in the first round is because it was too strong, if you could. So for balance reasons, they had to make it only be able to from the second round onwards. What does this do? So let's take the Apprentice Wizard, just because it's already out here. So, whether this is a friend or an enemy, you target it with Teleport, and then you can teleport it anywhere within 2 range. So, say you want him to go over here, you can do that. Anywhere within 2 range, you can then teleport him to. Friend or enemy, so if enemy's up in your face, you can teleport him away. If this is an ally, you're like, oh look, there's a vulnerable target over here, you can teleport him here, maybe they attack him. And then the last ability is Arcane Blast for 2 mana, 3 range. It deals 4 magic damage to target enemy unit. Very high magic damage right there. Sadly, can only use this up to 3 times a game, but that's essentially saying 3 units are dying. This with use this, and plus it's all because of diminish being able to be 0. It's always going to be able to do something useful. If it's not able to attack anything, it being able to be constantly give enemies -1 power is incredibly strong. And 3 health, honestly, for a backline unit is pretty good. So because none of the flanking units really have 3 power. They usually have a max of 2 power. So with 3 health, they really have to invest in killing the Grand Wizard. They can't just send a flanking unit to deal with it that costs 3 gold and it'll kill the Grand Wizard. They actually have to invest a higher cost unit to kill it. Very hard to use unit, but it's very fun to use. Very, very fun to use. All of its abilities are incredibly strong. Then last but not least is the Archangel. Archangel is like the regular angel, but Arc. So for 5 more gold in the angel, you're getting +1 power and +1 health. So big jump, 6 health and 4 damage is quite good. And then for its abilities, so Divine Shield is pretty much the exact same as the angels, except it gives it 1 more shield. So instead of shield 2, it's shield 3. Again, 3 health, 3 temporary health is insane. Essentially saying it's going to survive an extra hit, which is incredible. And its Resurrect, which is people really like to use, is that instead of a max of 5 gold, it's a max of 10 gold. So you have a lot of options too. So from this line down, you can even resurrect an angel. So the amount of options you have when resurrecting is huge. Like I said, you can even resurrect an angel, which can then resurrect something else. You know, it's pretty fun. Archangel, like the regular angel, has a really big target on its back. People are going to want to kill it before it gets resurrect off. But it's still incredibly powerful. If you get to use all of its mana, Archangel is incredibly powerful. But anyway, that's all Arengard. If there's anything you think I missed, please let me know. Anyways, if you're watching this and you are new, welcome to Legacy's Lair. I know this was a pretty long video, but I did have a lot to cover. Anyway, I hope this covered any questions you may have had. Anyway, I hope you liked it, and I'll see you in the next video.